Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. Horse Races Now podcast. Another great guest for you today. Excited about this one. I hope she's got a little bit better weather than we have here in Kentucky. But our guest today is Roxanne Tanner. She is the director of racing at Louisiana Downs Racetrack and Casino. Roxanne, thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
So excited to have you as part of the show. If you don't mind, do a quick intro, give us your role and kind of your job, what you currently are doing right now.
Well, I am director of racing here at Louisiana Downs, but I've worked for the company since 22. That's when they brought me on. So going on the fourth year here, and joined Kevin's team and actually got my job in a unique situation. Just I'm a DM on Twitter, and here I am.
Oh, okay.
But started off as the racing ambassador to help educate people and get them out to the racetrack, and transitioned over into the paddock, doing all the picks and all the dialogue that people either mute or like to hear.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And now I guess I'm in charge of it all. So Kevin Preston liked me that much. Go figure.
So Roxanne, what does a director of racing control on a race day?
On a race day, well, that's a great question. I think there's a couple of different things that, we kind of help. We try to make sure, if the track is in 100%, I talk with my track superintendent, Billy McKeever here at LAD, trying to make sure, if there's any adverse weather, we sit down and decide, what do we do if there is. I sit down with the stewards every day if there's any topics, whether it be an owner change or a trainer issue or a jockey change, we'll go over those. But for the most part, I just try to make sure that everything coordinates the way it needs to and everybody's doing their job accordingly.
Makes sense. All right. Kind of a fun question here. What's something the fans would be shocked to learn that falls under your responsibility?
Oh, well, I think in my role, it's a little bit different. You don't see a lot of director of racing out there in front of the camera still. So
good point.
I still do the paddock analyst stuff. I go into the local news stations and, try to educate people of the things that are going on here at Louisiana Downs. But I get calls about everything. So a dorm room on the backside, a hot water heater that might not be working correctly in the barn. I'll get those phone calls too. So there's really nothing that isn't off the plate. I'll even get people that'll call about reservations on Kentucky Derby Day or Super Derby Day here at the track. So I don't limit myself to just anything.
Yeah. All right. So you do a little bit of everything here, Roxanne. I love it. All right. So for our listeners that maybe don't know, tell us a little bit about Louisiana Downs.
So a great track. I mean, it was built in 1974. Ed Barlow. I think that's how I always butcher that last name, but he was on a little bit of a journey to build a couple different racetracks. He built Remington Park, was owner of the Rams at one point in time, I do believe, and so he thought Bossier City was the place to be, and so he built a racetrack here. Although Louisiana Downs, wasn't the initial site of the racetrack. They actually looked at some property over in Benton, which is about 20 minutes away from here, and so. Started in 74. They brought the Super Derby back started it in 1980. I think Corey Johnson and a number of people helped spearhead that great race to what it has been known for and some of the amazing courses we've gotten to see. But we're now going on year 52 of the property being in existence. We host both a quarter horse meet and thoroughbred meet, and we love everything that goes on here in racing.
Okay. So listen, Kenny loves him some Louisiana, right? And he, but talk to me, a topic we've had a lot on this show has been kind of the purses, right? And why a trainer goes to a particular racetrack. And, Kenny will talk pretty in depth about, why he's running his horses where he runs them. Talk to me about your purse structure and, why trainers do choose Louisiana Downs or maybe don't choose Louisiana Downs.
Well, I think our purse structure is a little bit of a challenge here. A a lot of racetracks rely on their slot revenue point blank to fund their purse account. And that has kind of been one of our, key competitive components here, is that we have to contend with a very oversaturated gaming market here. We've got, 5 other casinos that,
Mm.
we have to contend for customers with. And it becomes of a challenge because, we are independently owned. You've gotten to talk to Kevin Preston, and
Yep.
then, some of the other owners that are on board here. And so I do think sometimes people, forget that horse racing does get a decent cut from those slot revenues. So that being said, our parimutuel wagering, which we were up with our thoroughbred meet last year, 16% overall, makes up a portion of our purses. But we get supplementals for the Louisiana bred program with video poker and sportsbook money. And in July, we're actually supposed to see an increase for the breed program from additional video poker funds. So we're looking forward to that, but it's a very competitive market with purse money. So, we make the most of what we can and just kind of roll with it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And listen, I think that we're in a time now in the horse industry, the racing industry, that we're trying to find different ways to get people engaged at the tracks. Is there anything you guys are doing that's unique to get people to the races?
I think we tried to, when I first started here, we tried to get, we did faces at the races, introduced, race fans to who helps put on the show, whether it be a jockey, a trainer, outrider, racing official. We did a really good job kind of getting that kind of broadcasted out there via our social media outlets. And still to this day, try to walk through the grandstand, ask people, hey, what do you want to know? What can I teach you today? What can I help with? And so, just simple dialogue with people that come to the races. Now, as far as getting them out here, I think that's every racetrack's common struggle, whether it be dollar beer day. I mean, that's, something that I know a number of tracks.
That's right.
Put it out there, but it's a tough question to ask because we just don't know what the average person, they got the convenience of betting on their phone at home. So it's tough.
Yeah.
If you're giving away $1 million, they'll come, or you have Super Derby like us.
Sure.
That gives them an extra incentive, but how to engage them, I think it's a very deep, dark hole to dive into.
It is. And Roxanne, what's your opinion on? All right, so let me give you a little background. So I have a golf background, and specifically a country club background. And when I first started in country clubs, it was, hey, so men went to a country club to get away from their wives and their kids. And, now, right, and honestly, that's kind of where the racetrack had been and still kind of lives. But now it's kind of like, okay, if I can't bring my family with me to the country club, I can't join. I'm not going to be a part of this. I think that shifted a lot in the golf industry. Do you see that shifting in the horse industry? Do you see you guys doing stuff more to engage the family as opposed to just the bettor?
Well, that's kind of our unique situation here is we can have kids here at the racetrack. I mean, everyone says, oh, it's a casino, no kids. No, we have family fun days here. All of our big race dates, we have the bouncy houses, we have the face painting, we have the food trucks, the cotton candy, the ice cream shaped as a flute,
I love it.
We have it. So that's a big part of our great race days that we have is we do try to make them family friendly. I'm a second generation racetracker. My dad trained horses and owned, so it was a natural fall into type business for me. But I think it takes family engagement to get them out here.
I totally agree.
Part of it.
Yeah.
You got to get the dad, the mom out here. You start, maybe throwing out something fun at the track, and then they'll drag the kids along with, and that's what sets it off.
Yeah, and I think that the more that tracks get on board with that idea, the better attendance is going to be at races. So hopefully that's something tracks start picking up on more on. All right, so you mentioned a little bit of the we were talking purses, and you're talking about kind of the casino revenue and the sharing there. But what do you think fans and just the general public, what do they misunderstand most about how tracks bring in money?
I think just because they see it has a casino to it, that money is abundant.
Right.
I think that's a very safe assumption that a lot of people make. And that is just not the case. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the world that we live in today. I'm sure they drive by a restaurant and see, maybe 4 cars in it, and okay, it's doing pretty decent. But in reality, that's their wait staff waiting for people to come in.
Yeah.
So it's just the world we kind of live in today, and how to contend.
Yeah, understood. All right. So, in your role, you're constantly making decisions, putting out fires, doing a little bit of everything. Tell us about a decision that you made everyone mad when you made it, but you knew it was the right decision.
Ooh, ooh, I don't know if I've made that yet. I
Oh,
have
okay.
really, I'm very blessed. I have great dialogue with my horsemen. I think that's the beneficiary of growing up with a father who is one. And he always put into me that you've got to talk in order, because I don't want to. I try to make healthy decisions. I mean, much like every director of racing, but you try to work with everybody and think of the horse more so than the people. Um, I think I do look into that. It might be training in the morning. They might get a little upset if I'm training at certain hours, but
Right.
that's weather's fault. But other than that, I don't think I've had any too many adverse reactions, not positive reactions to any decisions I've made.
Okay.
So
All right. Fair enough.
knock on wood.
Fair enough. Maybe that's coming here soon. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
All right. Obviously, this is Kenny McPeak's podcast, so I want to ask you about trainers and what your dad was one. So you're going to have
Mhm.
great insight here. What makes a great trainer?
I think it's communication. I think that's a key component. You've got to be able to walk into the barn. You've got to be able to talk to your staff. I mean, they're with the horses 24/7. And, like Kenny, he's got, a bunch of different strings spread out between New Orleans, Arkansas. He's got the 2-year-olds are getting broke, getting ready, for their race
Right.
careers. He's got the whole breeding program. I think it's communication is a very key component this day and age in any part of horse racing. So, and you've got to have a good backbone, obviously, with who you put in your roles in the barns. So good assistant trainers, good foremen, good farm managers, and I think that is a very big component of training this day and age.
So you got to have good people. That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to have good
So
staff.
the horses will come. I mean, I think it pays off on the long run on the track, as long as you've got capable hands near you and helping you out with that. I think that's a very big part. So trainers, everyone thinks that they don't look at their horses on a given day, but they hire people to help them with that. So, Steve Asmussen, he's got Scott Blasey, Darren
Mm-hmm.
Fleming,
Mm-hmm.
Mitch Dennison, who's here as part of they keep a string here year round because they like our track so much.
Right.
But Steve does. I mean, he's got very strong assistant trainers. And I think that's a decent asset. And same thing with Kenny. He's got a very good team behind him that gets them to where they need to be.
In this game, winners win, and I only back winners. Trainer Kenny McPeak is a proven winner, and his horses are in my portfolio. And now they can be in yours too. McPeak's champion horses and Derby hopefuls are now featured on Morning Line. With Morning Line, I don't just watch the race. I own the moment. I invest in champions. This is my edge. Buy, sell, trade anytime. Morning Line, own the game.
All right, let's talk jockeys. Kenny loves him some Cajun jockeys. You look at Brian Hernandez and just all the jockeys that Kenny really likes the most. They're Cajun in one way or another. What makes a great jockey?
Patience. I think that it's such a very tough job in this business. And I'll be the first to say, jockeys weren't always my favorite people because you always think what is going through their head in a race. We always try to to self-assess, you know, or
Okay, hang on,
come up with their own
Roxanne.
assumption.
I got to stop you there. Why? Why would a jockey not be your favorite person? I'm curious.
Well, I think it just comes down to sometimes you, like I said, you just question. Sometimes, I've got great friends that have been jockeys. Terry Thompson.
When you say question, just like the moves they make on the track, or what exactly?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and whatnot. But you know, they're a big part of what happens, obviously, in a race. You know, Dwayne Lucas always used to tell me, he's like, you know, when it comes to a horse winning a race, it's always 90% the jockey, 10% the horse. But if a horse loses the race, it's 90% the jockey, or yeah,
It's
10%
flipped.
the horse, or
Yeah.
90% the horse, 10%. So like he had these great analogies that I always used to live by, you know, and jockeys they do have a tough job. I mean, I still remember sitting at Oaklawn Park one day, we were running a horse, and I just saw these race fans screaming at John Court, and I felt so bad for him.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there watching him, and they accosted him. But you know what? I asked him, I said, John, how did you handle that? And he goes, what do? You know, they're not jockeys. They aren't sitting, you know, on top of that horse. They aren't making the decisions that they do, that we do, you know. And I said, I understand that completely. I mean, I never galloped. I ponied a little bit.
Okay.
So I can't ever say I've sat in their shoes to know, you know, what they do and don't think. But you know, Brian, he's a great jockey. I love his wife, Jamie. She's amazing. You know, and I've gotten to know a lot of them along the way. I was always on the background though. I was a vet assistant for a couple years in Kentucky, and so.
All right,
yeah,
we're going down the next path here. Okay, so listen, I get to listen to Kenny get super upset about vets all day long. So let's talk a little bit about that, because, you know, he had a pretty gnarly Breeders' Cup experience in this past Breeders' Cup, where he took a bunch of horses out to California. None of them got cleared to run. He felt like all of them were okay, brought them all back and found out, you know, there wasn't anything wrong with any of them. And, you know, sometimes I think the trainers feel like the vets go a little bit overboard. Let's talk this a little bit, because I think the bettors too don't quite understand when a horse gets scratched. Give us that perspective on why a horse may not run on a race day.
Well, I mean, there's a number of variations. You know, there's always the sick card. You know, the horse might pop up with a temperature, or, you know, that the night before have a little bout of colic, and obviously you've got to be able to treat those horses. You know, and I always say, if we could read horses' minds, what would they tell us?
But they can't. But you can't. So, and
exactly,
they're animals,
so
which is why the vets have to advocate for the horses. And I guess, and I'm reading into this a little bit, Roxanne, but I'm guessing that's maybe why the jockey isn't always your favorite person, because maybe they put the horse in a situation that you think maybe isn't best for the horse. So I get that. And there's certainly a large contingent of people that think that racing horses is the wrong thing to do to a horse. So, you know, I'm always curious to hear the vet perspective, and being that you're someone who was a vet's assistant, you've got to have stories there and just an insight unlike anyone else on what it takes to get a horse ready to run.
Yeah. And I mean, the trainer works hand in hand with his veterinarian, because no one knows that horse better than the trainer, the exercise rider that's getting on that horse's back, the groom that's putting the bandages on every day. So, you know, a practicing vet compared it to a regulatory vet's got to see, you know, all these different horses in one day. And not to say a practicing vet doesn't either, but, you know, it's just such a different role, so to speak. You know, I worked for a great veterinarian in Phil Tripp, and, you know, he was good friends with my dad for a number of years. And, you know, you would sit there and listen to him watching horses, and he would say, what do you see? And what do you see? And you talk to the trainer to get any, you know, notes, and the gallop person might come out and say something. And so he was very intuitive in listening to not only the horse as it was jogging outside, but also what the trainer and, you know, those around the horse had to say. So, you know, that was one of my favorite jobs was, working for Dr. Tripp and learning and trying to understand what he sees, I mean, they go to vet school for 8 years, or they go to, vet school for about 4 or 5 years, and then they get set out into the world and they go at it. So regulatory vets, I do, it's a struggle. And that's probably why there's such a shortage of veterinarians coming
Is
into
there
the
a
racetrack
shortage?
world.
I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough when you're not winning races. It's trainers, a lot of people relay some of that to veterinarians, and there's nothing they can do. But, I have an older backside. So right now for my thoroughbred meet, I'm going to only have 2 practices. Whereas you go to Kentucky and there's 4 or 5,
Right.
And so they've scaled back a lot of different things in vet medicine from when I was a vet assistant. There's just a lot more transparency, which I think is great. Kenny does a great job talking about all of those, because he'll tell you, and everybody else in the industry will tell you, 10 years ago, it was a much different world that we lived in as far as vet practice goes.
Sure. All right. Well, fair enough. Well, what's your feelings on HISA?
I think, that's a very tangled web. We are one of the 2 states that's in a federal lawsuit. And I say it's the HPBA that's in that lawsuit. So, we don't operate under that umbrella. I think like anything, there's good signs to it, but there's also some sides that they need to adjust. I mean, I'm just the honest person that everybody else would say. I know they come across as very brash, I think, a little bit, but it's definitely a tangled web, and so you don't want to say the wrong thing, but it was something that I think had been discussed for a very long time, and they finally
is it good for the sport? Is it good for the sport?
I guess with this day and age and race fans, partially yes, but partially no.
Okay.
Because I mean, Breeders' Cup, they had all those scratches, and it wasn't a good sign. So, y'all asked the tough questions.
Hey, our listeners, I'm not going to throw you a bunch of cupcakes here. Our listeners want to hear the real answers. This is you're the inside person here.
It is tough, so I do feel very sympathetic for the regulatory vets, but because it's a very odd job, it's a very hard job.
Sure.
But I also, like I said, I think the horsemen know their horses better than anybody. And so I do feel like they need to be listened to more so.
Oh man, Kenny's going to agree with you on that one. That was a good answer. Okay. Coolest moment for you in all of horse racing? It could be anything, when you're a kid to your professional career, whenever. What was your coolest moment with horse racing?
Ooh, that's a tangled web. So my dad, if he was sitting right now anywhere near me, he would mention the year that we won the Rainbow Stakes at Oaklawn, which was his big career win.
Awesome.
With a horse by the name of Branson. Just a great story, homebred. He was taking care of it. He was not only the owner, but the breeder. He was doing all the training, all of the stuff, grooming it.
Oh, so you had to have been close to that horse, I would imagine.
Yeah, Branson was the cool horse, and he ended up selling him after he won the Rainbow Stakes, but had Kentucky or Arkansas Derby hopes for him.
Yeah.
But anyways, he ended up at the end of the race meet at Oaklawn. He sold him, and he went on to a different barn. But getting to work in the D. Wayne Lucas barn, Dr. Tripp did his work, so I got to sit around with Wayne and get to learn. He had all that great insight, and he would just have these sayings that would stick to you, and I think that was a very great part of my career.
Yeah, he's the GOAT.
He definitely instilled a lot of great stuff in people.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest of all times for sure. Okay, so I asked you about your coolest moment. What's maybe the craziest thing you've seen on a race day?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff, I guess. I still remember one year at Kentucky Derby. It doesn't really surprise anybody, but there was an infield cowboy and an infield Indian, and they both had on their little outfits with
Yeah.
speedos one underneath. That
Yeah.
was funny to see.
Yeah, the infield is
As
an
far
experience. If you
yeah,
haven't been to the Kentucky Derby infield, it's certainly an experience that I would recommend everybody doing at least once.
for sure, you got to put it on the bucket list.
Hmm.
As far as horse racing goes, I mean, I always I remember the year. What was it? Was it Saratoga? Ramaquet had a horse that ended up getting savaged. I think it was his horse and another horse. They were going back and forth with each other. I still remember that one. But I don't think I've had too many crazy moments. So
Okay.
I guess that's a good thing.
I guess it is a good thing. So, Kenny's people think you're just an absolute rock star in the industry, and you're going to have a huge future. What's next for Roxanne? So, what is like your goal, and what would be the ultimate mountaintop for you?
I want to get Louisiana Downs back to where it used to be in the 80s. I mean, in 90s. I think we have a great racing surface. I'd love to see the Super Derby be $1 million race and be considered a Breeders' Cup prep. I mean, Tis Now is still one of those iconic horses that I look at and say he's one of my favorite horses to win the Super Derby just because of that kind of background with him. But I'd love to see our track get, just bigger. I'd love to see our purse money grow and see a full backside. So that is what I think my goal is right now for now.
Fair enough. I love it. Best horse you've ever seen in person?
I mean, American Pharaoh was pretty cool. And I know people are gonna give me some grief on this one, but again, we'll take charge. When Lucas had him, he was just my horse. Anytime I'd walk in that shed row and would say just 2 words come out of my mouth, his head would pop up to the front of the stall because he was a little bit of a peppermint
Love it.
lover.
Love
So I still remember he came back from Santa Anita running in the handicap out there one year, and I had an apple for him, and we were giving him fluids, and he was sitting there chomping on his apple, and so he was a fun horse to be around. It's hard when you love every horse that comes over, though. I hate being that person, but
I get that.
yeah.
I get that.
So
And some of these horses have better personalities than others, but and you'll bond with one just like humans. So I appreciate that. So I love hearing those stories when you find a horse that you bond with. That's cool.
Oh yeah, but there's been a number of others too. But Wayne Catalano had Manny Waugh. That horse was the coolest horse. He's a little chestnut sprinter. He ended up going to Breeders' Cup and doing some great things. In Cat's Barn, I got to work for him COVID year, and Manny was just the man. He was a cool horse too. So I mean, I've been very fortunate to be around some nice horses.
So you mentioned quarter horse racing as we were kind of coming on the air. Honestly, Roxanne, not something I know a whole lot about. Maybe our listeners do, but is that something you guys do a lot of at Louisiana Downs?
So January through March is dedicated to quarter horses. So we do operate. We've got a backside with 1,599 stalls. And
Wow.
so of those close to 1,600 stalls, about 1,000 of them are occupied by quarter horses. So it's a very intriguing meet that presents a lot of unique challenges, but also some really rewarding moments as well. So I definitely think if you want, I think it's a great experience if you come out. So
what's the I mean, obviously I know the difference, but why do you think that it's not as popular? It's not looked at as being as real. I don't know. I don't even know how to say that, but why in quarter horse racing is popular as just regular horse racing?
I think it's kind of partially, with thoroughbreds, there's a little more strategy to it. you've got to say, hey, who's the speed, who's the come from behind horse,
Okay.
who's kind of the stalker. So I
Yeah.
think there's a little bit more strategy to it, and I think that's what people like.
Okay.
Whereas quarter horses, if you even remotely, stumble out of the gate, you're cooked. There's nothing
Interesting.
left. Like, you're
Okay.
not going to do anything.
Okay.
So I think, it's a short amount of distance, so there's not as much, to analyze there.
Right.
And so I do think sometimes it's not as big of a challenge with thoroughbreds. I mean, just going with race fans. It is a lot of excitement. I will say these horses are very, very spirited.
Yeah.
Very spicy.
Yeah.
Because they're running a shorter distance. And so, I don't know why it hasn't really caught on. I know there's a lot of bad publicity, unfortunately, with quarter horse racing, but what's unfortunate is trying to find those positive stories. And I just don't know if that maybe is well, I guess not decently put out in the universe as much as it should.
So you mentioned there's a strategy to, well, obviously you talked about the speed and the come behind, and you said it's not that as much in the quarter horse racing. Is it that way betting as well? Is it easier to pick out who's going to win?
Well, yeah, sometimes, yeah. I always say, yeah, sometimes. You look for a horse. I'm always consistent with the way I play my horses. I like a horse that's consistently been running decent. I mean, the toughest part of handicapping quarter horses, especially 2-year-olds making their debut, is they only have to have 2 works going into their first race, whereas
Right.
thoroughbreds have to have 3. So, but also we all know that thoroughbreds are going to have a little bit more to them than just those 3 works. But quarter horses are so difficult when they're making that first trip onto the racetrack to play, because you really have no background besides their pedigree.
Right.
But as far as, those other horses that have been running and are older and whatnot, it's, I think, a little bit more challenging. I think equipment changes are always a key component. They don't always change. I mean, a lot of them all come over in blinkers and a shadow roll. That's one thing that's very prominent in the quarter horse side of things. But,
Interesting.
I had a trainer that came over. He ran a horse opening week. Horse didn't run as he hoped, so he just wheeled that thing back a week later, and guess what? Horse made it right over to the winner circle. And, he said, he goes, I didn't have the horse in the right spot. I mean, he basically said, I needed to drop it a level, and he did.
Interesting.
But, and I did, because the horse that opening week, I had it picked, and he didn't run worth a lick. So he goes, I wish you would have talked to me. I was like, I can't, but it is a little bit more difficult in the sense that you just don't know. You don't.
Sure.
I mean,
Okay. All right.
I mean, quarter horses just they're a little bit different. So
Okay, fair enough. All right, give our listeners, and this will be the last question, Roxanne. You've been amazing with your time. I know you got a lot of fires you probably got to go put out, but give us our listeners a handicapping tip. Like, what is it, something that you think that may be an easy way for somebody to look at a race and hey, this is, you should look at this particular stat line or this particular thing for handicapping?
Well, I do like my DRF formulator. I've always been a big utilizer of that, but
what is that? That could you're speaking French there to me. What is that?
Daily formulator. It's just one of their handicapping, their past performances. I can dive deep into.
Oh, the daily racing form. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry. You're using. All right, gotcha. I'm okay. With you now.
But my dad always instilled in me to look at a horse in the paddock. He is one of those people. So when horses are coming over to the paddock, I have to give my picks before the races start.
Right.
But I will point blank tell people while on camera, this horse came over to the paddock, got a great coat to him, love the demeanor. This horse is a standout.
Kenny says shiny coat. Is that something you look for too?
Yeah. A healthy, shiny coat.
Healthy, shiny. Yeah. He likes a nice, shiny coat to the horse, and that's what he likes to look for in the paddock.
Yep. I mean, you can tell a lot by by their coat. So, but also, like I said, their demeanor coming over, you can just kind of look horses in the eye and say, man, this horse looks very fierce today. So, it sometimes benefits.
Okay.
Knowing that little, nugget, I guess, or seeing that little tip there.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. Fair enough. How well do you do on the handicapping side of things?
Thoroughbred side, way better.
Okay.
Quarter horses, like I said, I'm 2 weeks into the meet.
Right.
We had to cancel obviously last week due to weather. So I'm still kind of getting to know some of the horse population. But I'll get there. I've had a couple of decent plays thus far, and yeah, I love thoroughbred. So, I mean, I'm not to say I don't love quarter horses.
No, I gotcha. Hey, we understand. We're with you here.
Yeah, thoroughbreds I grew up with. So that's it. My dad he always told me there's no such horse as anything but a thoroughbred. So
Yeah, I get it. I love it. Roxanne, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of Horse Races Now. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a like. Give us a comment. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Roxanne.